So that's it. Now, usually you come thundering in back from the
That's
break.
right.
I wasn't even sure we were back because you were so quiet about it.
And we're back.
Yeah, no, we're out here. Thank you very much for joining us again. My name is Donovan.
I'm Colin.
And we are joined by Brandy, a.k.a. the Creatix.
Yay.
And let's see, what are your socials, Brandy? Because I remember there's some, like, where there's some underlines or some periods or something, right? There's some complications here. It's not straight across.
Creatrix_TTV and then Creatrix__ on Instagram. So Creatrix_TTV on Twitter. Creatrix__ on Instagram. I was considering changing it though.
To what?
Because I was reading this book and I saw this word, liberatrix.
Ooh, okay.
And it's the liberator, female liberator. And I was like, oh, I kind of like that. But it would be like a complete rebrand from Creatrix. But it's also like less popular. Like you don't like Creatrix got like super big. All of a sudden, like I see it like all over the fucking place. Like the name. So I'm thinking about changing it to Liberatrix. I kind of like it.
I like it.
It's not bad.
No.
It's not bad
Not
at all.
bad.
It's got liberty in the center. And I mean, you're about
I know.
You're like
It's
one of the
so
most
on
base
brand.
libertarians that I know. I'd
Ooh,
probably
that's
rank
a
you number
compliment.
3 behind
Damn.
Dave Smith
Behind
and
yourself.
Robbie the Fire.
Ooh.
You know.
Robbie's my friend.
I mean, I'd put Michael
met-
Malice there, but technically he's an anarchist, so you
No,
don't.
he's not libertarian. Well, no, I know. Yeah.
No, before we go any further, I do want to thank you again for being here, Brady, and thank everyone who is here in the audience, who is watching. All the commenters, make sure that you like, subscribe, share, tell everyone that you know about it so that they can come here, they can see this conversation, they can learn how to expand their liberty and their freedom personally. I am... What? Liberator is a sex toy, just so you know, says Joseph, one of our listeners.
Liberate tricks.
It's the Liberate Tricks, Joseph.
Oh.
Come on. No, of course we are. I'm at Salt of the Street on Twitter and at alpaca_Donovan on Instagram. At Colin is a Big Bird Offie on both those things. You can find all of this at saltofthestreets.com, including our Patreon at Salt of the Streets. Go there, subscribe. We have the articles coming out at the end of the month. We're going to talk some shit about Steven Crowder. It's going to be great.
Oh, it's going to be great. And I just want to address, Joseph, your comment about James O'Keefe and the OMG media on this upcoming beer show on Friday. I'm going to be talking all about that video, the videos of them going around to the Act Blue donors and all the wacky shit that's involved with that. That's what I plan on doing this coming Friday. So be there, Garrett. Be there.
Yeah,
Let's get some
Garrett.
beers going. Yeah, have you
Bro,
seen any of those
I didn't even
videos?
get beers.
No.
I have regrets.
Did you like Postmate some beers?
I was thinking about it.
That's really
Should I?
funny.
I mean, you do live in a city where you could Postmates.
Seems like it's time.
That's
What
right.
kind of elf bar do you have?
This is a strawberry watermelon.
There you go.
Nice.
I got it in New York City. Oh, well, even though it's illegal there, I don't need to call out New York City for breaking the law, though I love
Black
it. It was
market?
I kind of black market. It was very agorist. Like I kept going into like these smoke shops, and they were all just like, I was like, wait, is this legal here? Like these flavor vapes, and like,
Nah.
no. I was like, respect. I was like, fuck yeah, fuck the man. And then I was talking to this guy I met that owned a restaurant, and he was talking about how like he got shut down because they were like smoking inside, and he stayed open for 3 years after. Because New York's so big that like
What are they
people
gonna
can't
do?
even they like can't even enforce all of the laws that they have because there's so many people.
That's
and I feel
awesome.
like there's low key a little bit of like an agorist vibe, like counter economy thing going on.
Yeah, so explain to people what that term is, right? Agorism, that is a big term in the libertarian and anarchist fields. So for people who don't know what that is, will you explain to people what that is?
It's basically I'm trying like using the alternative, like creating an alternative economy through like black market, gray market means, which would be like called a counter economy.
Yeah.
I think that's like the simplest way I can explain it. If you guys have like a more in-depth way, go for
I think
it.
that's good.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah?
It's kind of a pushback against the idea that there's a quote unquote approved marketplace and an unapproved marketplace, whereas
Precisely.
a free market is a free market. People can buy and sell what they want. That's my understanding.
A
anyways.
modern barter system that you have with somebody would be an example of that,
Yep.
right? These are all just different. So,
Yeah.
and so what, like you said, the example you're giving is very good, that there are people that are still selling things that are supposed to be regulated out of existence, that you can't get them there
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
There used to be, I fucking wish I could remember what it was called.
Certain firearm parts might go
yeah,
into that,
certainly.
considering what we just talked about.
There are like when concentrates THC concentrates, oil and stuff was first starting to get big here. There was a thing.
Oh, that's
Everclear. The guy called it Everclear, and I went to a smoke shop, and I was buying a bong, and he had in his drawer this shit that he called Everclear. That was just, it was like just a different way to create a concentrate. I don't remember what type of chemical he was using, but it was just clear. So instead of being yellow or having any type of tint to it, it was clear, and he was just selling it out of a drawer in the smoke shop, and it
like
got
it.
you higher than balls. It was insane. It was totally a cannabis product, and we was like at the point regulated here. You could still buy it in stores, like all this type of stuff. And this guy just had a weed store. You could also, he had a heat press in the back of the building, and you could pay a press fee, and you could go and you could take bud there, and you could press it out into rosin for like $10. Like he would just charge you $10 to be able to press all your shit, and then you could just take your weed discs and do whatever you're gonna do with them. You could make your own rosin there.
Oh, that's-
where usually it would cost you thousands of dollars for the equipment. You go there, pay that dude $10, and press your own shit. I'm sure it was illegal as fuck.
That's
right?
legit.
But he was still doing it, and that was a very cool thing. I was a big fan of that.
Yeah.
It's called Up in Smoke. It's right across from Envy.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
right,
yeah.
It's not there anymore.
Nope.
It's like a U-Haul place now.
There she
but
gone.
That was a great smoke shop when it was around.
Envy's our favorite local dive.
Yes.
There's a lot of smoke shops that are doing this with shrooms now.
Oh,
Like
really?
selling like shroom chocolates and stuff. Well, especially now that weed's legal. And it's like I hate to say this on the internet because I want this to keep going. So it's like I don't want to like give the feds any ideas. Don't go raid smoke shops, you asshole.
Can't stop the signal. Yeah,
Can't
it is
stop
what
the
it is.
signal. It's out.
Yeah,
It's like
but yeah, like the whole counter economy aspect. I think one part of the guy that created the concept of agorism was also that is a way to like rebel against the current system is by using black markets.
Certainly.
I'm a huge
And it
fan.
kind of like goes deeper into like even like buying things, you know, like buying from Amish people and buying raw milk and things like that.
Yeah.
And eggs that aren't, you know, run by the FDA. Like that's
Yes.
technically you're participating in the counter economy when you do those things.
Yeah.
Jordan's going to pick up some eggs tomorrow from our egg bitch. We
Oh,
got,
yeah?
You
You
got an
got
egg
an egg
bitch.
bitch?
We have
So
an egg
is
bitch.
is that illegal though?
Yeah.
Like
Probably.
technically, like if you like it's like highly unlikely they will enforce it, but like it is kind of illegal.
Probably.
If there's any kind of currency exchanged, then it's illegal technically.
Yeah.
But, you know,
It's just a woman.
cash is dope.
Well, a family. She has a family. But yeah, she just has a small farm. You know, it's right off of Central Valley, so it's not very far. It's
Yeah.
very close. And yeah, we buy chicken and duck eggs from her. And I'm
Ooh.
sure
duck eggs are so good.
it probably is illegal because they're not washed. You know, they're dirty as fuck.
Yeah.
'cause
There's
she
no
just gets them out of
FDA,
the-
you know,
yeah.
there's no
So
EPA, FDA regulations controlling these things. The
Yeah.
inspectors haven't been by.
They're goddamn delicious, though.
Oh,
I
I'm
had them for
sure.
breakfast this morning. I had the last of our chicken eggs
Oh,
for
yeah.
breakfast. They're
We used to have
dark
a,
yolk and
we used to have
fire.
a
Yeah,
chicken
so
dish.
good.
Yeah.
We used to have.
I grew up. Oh, sorry.
I was so we used to have a nice chicken supplier, an egg supplier, but that well dried up.
Dirty
Yeah,
eggs
I
last
grew up
longer.
with chickens and ducks, and they look the shell always looks dirty.
Oh, yeah.
But like
Well, it
you
comes out
like
of their
that's just
butt.
how they come out.
Yeah.
Right.
Like they're not naturally supposed to. Those shells aren't naturally supposed to look all like clean. It's actually sketchy.
Yeah.
How clean they are.
Or white.
They're
like why
pressure
they look
washed,
like
right?
that?
Yeah, they're like treated with a bleach solution most of the time. I think if you're buying like the organic brown ones,
Yeah.
there's another washing type of situation going on. But that's also why you have to refrigerate them. It's
Right.
because you took the
Yeah.
integrity of the shell away.
Because there's a layer of something, like a preservative layer on the outside of the
Mm-hmm.
egg, right? And that's what keeps legit. James is saying that dirty eggs
Yeah.
last longer. And there's even the first time we bought them, the woman put a little card on the inside of the carton that was like, don't fucking wash them. Like,
Don't wash 'em.
Don't worry about it. If
Don't
you
put 'em
are
in the
going to wash
fridge.
them, then put them in the fridge, you know? But, yeah.
Yeah. I think James is one of your crowd because he's suggesting we get you some Tito's vodka. He knows you. Maybe.
No. Well, I'm trying to be responsible. I'm trying not to get like super fucked up on the internet anymore.
You know, we talked about that before we started the show because our last episode together, by the end of it, like we were I know personally.
Was I super lit? I
No,
don't even
no,
remember.
no.
But I
That's
was.
we both were drunk.
Yes.
And we both said things that we've talked about probably multiple dozens of times since then of like, yeah, that was a dumb thing to say.
That was dumb. So brand new into the realms of like anarchy and, you know, anti-government theory. And I'm like, I'm going to argue this shit. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even remember. Were we arguing? I think we did. Did we get into like a minor debate towards the end?
There
I can't
was-
even
yeah,
remember.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I was trying to justify anarchy, and I was not doing so hot.
Yes.
I blame the booze.
Honestly, I have a lot of friends that are anarchists, like on both sides of the spectrums. Like there's like the anarcho-capitalists and then the anarcho-communists. Like I can vibe with both of them.
Yeah.
It's like as long as you believe in decentralization, like I'm cool with it.
That's right.
I just might not think that like your idea is like plausible. Like I
Word.
don't know if I think I have a little baby anarchist that lives inside my heart.
Oh yeah,
Like, you
for
know,
sure.
like it's there, but it's like not really. Do I see that as like a vision of the future that's possible? No. It
Word.
seems a little like utopian to me, or even dystopian. Like it could lean on
Ooh.
either direction.
Yeah.
Especially on the anarcho-commie
Communist
side.
side, 100%.
But
Yeah.
they're parallel roads that run a great distance in the same direction, and then they do generally split off somewhere over the horizon.
Yeah.
But we just don't know which way necessarily. But I'm a huge supporter of libertarianism. Like deep in my heart, I might believe that the more utopian ideas of anarchy apply, and those principles should run throughout. But I'm also realistic and to say I would be incredibly happy, and I would feel much more at home in this country if we had like an actual libertarian government.
Yeah.
I could
Yeah,
stomach
like a
that very
minarchist?
happily. Yeah,
Minarchist government.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you know,
that's
some-
like ideal.
yeah, some Matt Keeby type shit.
I think in the world of modern politics, libertarianism is a good compromise between people who are comfortable with the status quo and people who are more comfortable with anarchism. Libertarianism is like a good compromise in there that you can lead a life with virtually zero government involvement. But if you choose to involve yourself more with that government, you still have that option. That still exists. Because the government is still there. So if you choose to be a worker for that, or if you choose to play a larger role in that, that exists. But ideally, the government would be so small, like Brandon said, in a minarchist
Yeah.
style, that you can lead your life with virtually no interaction with the government at all.
If I can,
Yeah.
if I could live my life pretending like I'm an anarchist in that society, which sounds like it could be true. Like if I don't need the government, I could go my whole life without realizing they exist.
You should.
That'd be
yes.
the tits.
You should, as a human being in anywhere, you should have the ability to move somewhere and live completely independently of all modern civilization, and no one should fuck with you. That should be a thing that you can attain. And there should be no one else who has a record of you somewhere that's like, hey, the last time we heard from this guy was 10 years ago. This bitch owes us money. Like, there should be no one who's tracking that when you decide to leave. You should be able to just go. That should be a feasible possibility for you.
Seems about right to me.
Yeah. I always say that I wouldn't mind if, like, so this is what I say to people that are anarcho-communists and anarcho-capitalists and they all hate each other. And I'm always like, to be fair, if you want to create a little communist commune and everyone voluntarily gives up their property and voluntarily wants to live in that way, I don't give a shit.
Word.
And if you like, you know what I mean? Like, do it. Like, I don't mind if people want to live in like a communist structure, as long as they're not putting that on other people and forcing other people to participate and thinking that we all need to become communists too.
Yes.
But if they just want to do it separately, dude, go for it.
Oh yeah.
People already tried it in the 60s. It didn't work, but do it again.
Yeah, do it again.
Do you remember during 2020, we had in Seattle Chaz Chop?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
When that first happened,
But that wasn't voluntary. They took over like
That's
a
right.
neighborhood that didn't voluntarily want to participate in that.
Yes.
Like, that's completely
Yes.
different. Like, you know,
Right.
I'm talking about if everyone, in order for something like that to like work, you know, quote, like air quotes, like people would have to all voluntarily want to do that. Like
Yes.
they would have to have a piece of land, and everyone, or like a city, for example, like a small town, everyone in the town decides they're willing to give up their private property, all the businesses are willing to have the workers like own the means of production. You know, if they want to create that system within that city and everyone like says, yeah, we want this, I think they should be allowed to do it as long as they're not trying to infringe that on every other city around them.
Yeah.
But I don't think it'll work.
Yeah.
I think that it will fall apart and they're going to all realize that very quickly that it doesn't work. That's why I say let them experiment.
And in the beginning of Chess Chop, there was some form of generalized agreement with what was going on, because it was just kind of we're putting up these walls and we're going to keep this area safe. And eventually the people who lived there, like you said, were being extorted. The businesses were being extorted. There were rapes there. There were multiple murders that happened inside of there. When things started to really devolve, it was when people were like, well, this isn't working for me anymore. You know, for a little bit, especially in Seattle, especially in the neighborhood, they're like, Black Lives Matter, let them do what they want. This is fine. I'm okay with this. This is going to be okay. And then it fucking really turned to shit when they were, you know, really controlling who could come and go, and people who lived there were being held out of their own apartments. Like, there started to be some real issues.
Lots and lots of guns, you know what I mean? For the security. It was a whole deal.
I look at Amish as kind of like a communist society in a weird way. They're like a little
100%.
Communist if you think about it.
Yeah,
and like they're
sure.
fine. You know, like, so it's like I can see it working in that kind of scale. Like, and as long as it's like a we'll leave you alone, you leave us alone kind of vibe, why not?
Yep. Yeah, it generally works. I think, I don't know, there's like a common number thrown out. Anything more than like 50 people, things generally break down, because you lose the ability for everybody to actually give informed consent to any kind of authority. And then people start to lose that, and then the whole system breaks down. But I mean, I'm pretty into like the idea of like a core little commune type of thing with like, you know, imagine just a bunch of based ass people, you know, your militia type friends and stuff like that, but you're growing your own food. You know, you got a big old piece of dirt that you all kind of live on in your own little places, and you all kind of just, you know, you support each other. I mean, it seems like a really fun type of thing to do, like a big self-sustaining like ranch type of thing, you know. And everybody's got
it
their
would
own
work,
shit.
but for that, I just
for
love
that.
modernity too much.
Oh yeah,
I like like aspects of modernity. I like
cheap
being
Chinese
able to buy
electronics.
shit on
We
Amazon.
talked about
You
this,
know what I
the
mean?
amenities.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like it. I like what capitalism gives me. So like,
it's pretty sweet.
it's like for me, I'm like, I don't really want to opt out of that.
No,
Like,
no.
if other people do, like, go for it. But for me, I'm like, you know, I prefer not having to work on the fields like 10 hours a day, to be completely honest. Because if you work if you're going to start something like that, that's basically it. You're giving your labor to the cause. And like everyone, in order for it to work, everyone has to give equal amount of labor. Everyone, it's not like you get to pick what you get to do. I'm sure they'll try to do that at first, but like it's going to end up what needs to be done, and you have to do what needs to be done, not what you want to do. And like, I want to do what I want to do.
That's right, because you're an individual with freedoms. I like, like right before you said that, Joseph in the chat says, no, it breaks down because not everyone will be okay with everyone else's work ethic. I'm like, well, you just made that point.
Yeah, no, it's true. And there will be people that will be lazy. And then the other people are going to get pissed about it because they're not putting in the work. And it's like, it all just will fall apart at that point.
That's right. Because there's going to be somebody that has to be like the commune bean counter, who has to track all the inventory coming and going and this. And while they're doing that, because they're so busy, they can't be out in the field breaking their back, working the land or building the house or whatever. And then people are going to get pissed off.
That's true too. They're gonna be like, oh, this elitist.
Yeah. This fucking elitist over there, and
the kulak dude.
He's a kulak. Yes, he's a kulak.
And I think that's what works for like what the Amish and the Mennonites, right? What works for them is partially, I think, the small scale, but also that there is a unified set of morals that lies at the core of that they all share that same thing. It's not even an ideology necessarily. I mean, it is like religiously based.
It's a religion,
but I just mean to separate it from, like, it's not communism, you know,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
it's religiously
yeah.
based. There's a set of morals that ties these
Yeah.
people together, and at the core of it is hard work. Like
Yes.
that's what it's
Yeah.
based around, is work and labor to I don't want to mischaracterize. I don't know exactly what their religion is, but it's tied very deeply with their religion.
Yes.
That amount of hard labor.
Which comes with very distinct roles that every person plays in this
Yes.
society. There's no questions about it. Everybody does
Yes.
that, and then your religion backs up the morality of it. So you just do the thing that you're supposed to do, and then if everybody's on that tilt, then you feel like everybody's doing what they need to do.
And then let the pieces of shit go. If
Yeah.
you're a person who doesn't
Yeah.
want to work, they let you go. Like
Rumspringa!
then don't be here. Then don't be here
Yeah.
because we would rather not have you here
right.
than do what we just talked about, of sit in the field and bitch about you because
right.
you're fucking around doing something else. Just leave. We'd rather you just go, and
Yeah.
we'll figure it out ourselves.
If I'm only allowed to have a chin beer, I'm not into that. So I
That's
gotta
right.
go.
I just heard it has something to do with marriage. That
Yeah,
like
status. Marriage status or
Yeah,
whatever.
that like once you're married, you have to shave your mustache.
We
and then
must have
you
been
can
listening to the same thing.
Yeah, I don't.
'Cause I remember
maybe it was
that.
Man Shane's or something, but
My-
because they were talking about the Mennonites, they talk about that shit. Being from Pennsylvania, they talk
Yeah.
about the Mennonites and stuff all the
It
time.
must have
so,
been. You know who Shane Gillis is? Comedian?
I don't know.
Oh, well, you should find out because he's fucking
What
hilarious.
what is he? I might just not know his name.
Yeah, he's a stand-up. He's been on. You ever watch Rogan much? Listen to Rogan?
Yeah.
You ever heard of the Protect Our Parks episodes they do?
Oh God, no.
Maybe not. Okay.
That's a couple of comedians: Mark Normand, Ari Shaffir, and Shane Gillis, and they just.
I know Ari Shafir.
Yeah.
Wait, I might have actually watched what you guys are talking about. And I
probably
just don't know their names.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
yeah.
probably know who he is.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
he runs in similar circles of all of those comedians,
Yeah.
all of the New York comedians. He lives in New York now from Pennsylvania. So all those people, the Ari Shafirs, the Mark Normans, he even knows Dave Smith and the
Yep.
Legion of Skanks dudes, like all that. He's involved
Yeah.
with all those guys. So you probably do know who he is, just not his name and face.
Yeah. And just a
Yeah.
quick plug, everybody, you just look him up on YouTube. His last special's on YouTube for free, and it's fucking hilarious.
Shane Gillis?
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
live
so
in Austin.
good.
Yeah, live in Austin.
Yeah. Wait, what the fuck? I forgot what I was gonna say. It had to do with what you just said. Oh, I know what I was gonna say. The liber. I think it's interesting that there's like almost like a libertarian comedian, like
Oh, yeah.
Venn diagram.
Yes.
It's very. I
yeah.
love it. Because I hire comedians and then I meet people and like I'm like, oh my god, you guys are like all kind of like libertarians or anarchists. It's very interesting. It's like a very interesting like. But then there's like the super like liberal comedians, but they're not funny.
No.
Like like the super like Democrat comedians. They're never funny. You're like,
No.
oh my god, you guys.
We don't know
Aren't
their
good at
names
this
for
job.
a reason.
You guys are not good at this.
In comedy, there's an inherent aspect of bucking the system, of fighting against control and authority,
Yeah.
and wanting to be left alone. I want to be left to do what I want to do. I want to be able to say my jokes. I want to be able
Yep.
to say dumb things and hang out with my friends. And so there's like an inherent libertarianism that's just within that business,
Yeah.
that mind frame of wanting to say things that people don't like and make people uncomfortable and push the limits that wanting to live that type of lifestyle just doesn't naturally fit in a Democrat mindset, you know?
No. Yeah, like a big L liberal type of thing. You know, it's just
Yes.
it's too authoritarian for comedians to be comfortable with it. Good
Yeah.
comedians, because you can't be edgy and you can't
Yeah.
make people uncomfortably laugh. You know what I mean? And that seems to be the true edge in comedy right now anyways, is the stuff that you're laughing at it and you might feel bad about laughing, but you're still going to laugh because it's
Yes.
fucking
Yeah.
funny.
100%.
You know? Oh,
I hate that they stole the word liberal.
Yeah,
I
right.
hate that. I like that word. I'm kind of pissed that they took that. Like Mises called himself a liberal. Like all the old
Oh,
school,
yeah.
like classical liberal, like Austrian economists, all called themselves liberals. And like I hate that I can't call myself a liberal anymore. Like it kind of pisses me off. And the people that do, it's like, but you're just like not. Like the definition of the word liberal is like not what you are. So
Right.
it
You're an
really bothers
authoritarian.
me. Like that people get to like use words incorrectly. Like
a
it's an
huge
incorrect
problem.
use of the word. Like
Yeah.
it's so 1984. Like I won't like I don't even like saying the word liberal. I'll just say leftist.
Yeah.
like,
That's
you know,
more
or
apt.
Democrat, depending on what they are, like where they're at on like the spectrum. But like I'll say either a Democrat or like a far leftist
Yeah.
when I'm
Yes.
really trying to specify what I'm talking about. But I don't even like calling them liberals. I try not to because it's like bullshit.
Well,
I called myself a classical liberal for about 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then after so many conversations of you say that and someone's like, oh, so you fucking believe this or this because of what you said, they attribute
Yeah.
the word liberal to something that's completely separate from what it originally was. I mean, Teddy Roosevelt was a liberal. He's
Yeah.
a classical liberal. Like these are people that are not leftists. They do not embrace a large government ideology, you know? So I had a huge issue with that for a long time. And then
Yeah.
eventually I just abandoned it because it wasn't worth the time I was taking to try and explain it to people. And that's, I haven't been asked in a long time, like, what are you, Republican or are you conservative? Like I haven't been asked that in a very long time.
Me neither. And I think it's probably in today's world, getting comfortable with a lack of labels, except in very particular situations. I think it's something you need to be comfortable with these days, because the term, the words change all the time, and it's an ever evolving thing, thanks to the people that control the modern day lexicon. Everybody in the media that is on that, they're leftist people. That's kind of their jam. It's the constant doublespeak. It's the double think. It's like you said, 1984. You just finished reading 1984 again. For the book club, shout out hashtag SOS Book Club.
That was a really good review preview.
Out right now on the Salt Streets YouTube channel.
That's right.
But I mean, that's part of their game plan, is to muddy the language so much that labels essentially become useless, because at any point in time they need to be able to craft a specific label or use a specific label to support whatever narrative that it is that they're trying to push at the time. And if we don't get comfortable with essentially reverting back to base values and being able to express those to determine what you are or what you think, then we're lost, because they'll always keep changing it. I'm surprised libertarian has held out this long, to be perfectly honest.
I don't think it has. I meet people and they either don't know what a libertarian is, or they think libertarians are right-wing extremists.
Yeah.
Like those are like the two types of things. Like that's what I always meet people that are either just like, what the fuck is a libertarian? No clue what that is. Or it's like, oh, those are those white nationalists, like Proud Boys,
Tiki
like
Torch.
people
Tiki Torch.
like just I don't even know much about Proud Boys. I don't even know why I use that as an example, though I do think people put them in that category.
Yeah. We know
But,
they're
like,
mostly feds
They're
these
all
days.
feds at this point, yeah.
But like that seems to be what people perceive it as. Like, and I've especially had this conversation with people recently.
So just because we're kind of on this topic, I had a specific question I want to ask you about libertarianism. But now I'm going to make it two questions, because another one just popped into my mind and they're related.
This is the one, huh?
This is the one.
Hit the button.
Hit the drop.
With that, let me ask you this.
There we go. We got a little drop for the YouTube folks for that one. Segment called "Let Me Ask You This." So let me ask you this, Trix. First question: how is it that you would define a libertarian?
Okay. For me, someone that doesn't believe that they should use the government to infringe on other people. Really, a true libertarian should never believe in the infringement of others in general. But I also would say, like, I used to say fiscally conservative, socially liberal, but that's not really the case anymore, because there's plenty of socially conservative libertarians, like a lot actually.
Yeah, especially
so
these
it's not
days.
really that, but I would say as long as you don't think that you should be able to impose your morals on others, like, or your value system, you shouldn't be able to use your value system and impose that on other people and try to force people to live the lifestyle that you think needs to happen.
Well, I think considering what knowledge I do have on the subject, that seems to check all the boxes as far as libertarians. So my second question for you, we'll phrase it this way, because you might not think there is, but if there is a problem with the generalized libertarian party in this country, what is their biggest problem?
Oh my God. I think there's a few.
Right. It's the seatbelt. It's the seatbelt argument. For God's sakes, people, get over that.
I would say one is not being able, like, being inconsistent in that earlier statement that I just made. Like, there is that happening. Like, the more conservative libertarians have a hard time with the ones that aren't, and then the more socially liberal libertarians have a hard time with the ones that are socially conservative. And like, there's always like this split, and that is the problem, is that they can't get fucking along. Like, that's why there's that meme where it's like libertarians, and it's like they're all like, the libertarian is like the kid on the ground, and like the libertarian's like punching the kid, and there's a libertarian recording it and a libertarian pointing and laughing. Like, that meme is like so fucking accurate, because libertarians fucking fight with each other more than they fight with other people. Like, libertarians all fucking hate each other, and that is our problem, is that we all just need to like fucking get along. I went to the Mises Caucus event in New York City, and then 2 days later I went to a Reason magazine event. Those two groups do not fucking like each other, but
No.
I like both. Like, I really like Reason. I might not agree with them on certain things. Like, they occasionally have said things where I'm like fuck. And then like, even Mises Caucus, like, there are certain things that they've said, or had someone that's involved with them said. I don't really like to like say they, though, because it's like, it's just because we're associating in groups, and at the end of the day we're all an individual. So like, even though I like associate with the Mises Caucus, anything I say shouldn't reflect on them, and anyone else that associates in the Mises Caucus, anything they say shouldn't reflect on just the Mises Caucus in general. It's like a baseline of ideas that we all agree on. Everything else is kind of like, it doesn't really matter, and everyone just gets distracted and is focusing on these like minute details.
That seems about libertarian. You know, that's like the classical problem with libertarianism.
Yeah, and at the Reason magazine event, like, I would tell people, I was like, oh yeah, I just came from the Mises Caucus event, and it would be like immediate shift of energy. Like, people would be like,
shun the non-believer.
oh, those right-wing people. And I was like, but they're not. Like, I was like, I'm very socially liberal. I'm a bisexual, ambiamorous, like, fucking, like, wild card. I produced variety shows. I managed a strip club for 8 years. Like, I'm extremely like on that socially liberal side without being, I'm just not woke. That's it. It's like, but I still believe, for my lifestyle, they would probably, a lot of the more conservative libertarians would think I'm a degenerate. You know, like, so I don't know. That seems to be the big issue, I think.
Seems like in modern politics, it's important to embrace, particularly for the Libertarian Party, the idea of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Yes. Just because you don't agree with everything this person has to say, if they're going to work with you towards the common cause of limiting the government, this is a thing you should be in favor of. This is a thing you should be working towards, because it's still cutting down the size of the government, even if that person doesn't like the same shit that you like.
Seems about right.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like, because the same thing happens in the larger parties, but because they're larger, it's not as big of an issue. The larger caucuses within them just take control, or they Nancy Pelosi style beat the party into submission, or the squad into submission, and then everyone goes along with it anyway, you know? Yeah. But because the Libertarian Party is smaller, they have a smaller take of the overall pie. Yeah. Those groups really tend to tear shit apart when they cannot come together. Oh yeah, I mean, it just has a larger effect.
In the Mises Caucus takeover, I mean, there's still fallout to this day.
Oh my God, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, and I had a very interesting, I think, very contextual take, or spat on Twitter with the Libertarian Party of Washington account the other day that I think speaks directly to this, because I found out something very interesting. So I just want to go over this little tweet thread real quick that I pulled up here. I think that's not
Oh my God, I'm looking at this fucking tweet right now.
It's pretty
that
epic.
Is the dumbest shit I've ever fucking seen.
Yeah. So Donovan, would you mind reading my tweets for me?
Yes, the Libertarian Party of Washington said, there is an alarmist take on the state of the U.S. healthcare system that claims it is quote-unquote broken. At no point in human history has life-saving medical care been more available to each and every individual. And then they replied to themselves. And usually, it's worth noting, usually when people do this type of stuff, they'll say like a thread, or they will note that I have said more than just this tweet.
One of two.
Yes. Yeah, one of two. They will indicate in some way that there's more than just this thing I said, but they did not.
Indeed.
And then in the second one, and they had more characters. Let's be honest. There was more characters available in the first tweet. They could have done that.
Well, they got to pay their $8. And they're not doing that, apparently.
And then they say, that is not to say that the system cannot or should not be improved. However, let's pump the brakes on the hysteria. Your grandparents would have just died to diseases that you can go to the ER and get treated for today. Outcomes are better than they have, ever have been.
I mean, they're correct there. Like, that
Word.
part is actually correct.
They're
but
not
like
wrong.
saying that it's an alarmist take to say that the healthcare system is not fucked. It's also the US spends the most money in the whole entire world on healthcare.
Yes.
And it's the most expensive, but it's also not the best. Like, so
confirm.
I think that is the problem. Like, there is a disconnect there, and it is like, it's just a weird thing for a libertarian fucking Twitter to say, in my opinion. Weird take. I don't know.
When cutting edge technology does not translate to cutting edge medical care. Like, that's not what that means. That doesn't mean you have the best coverage just because we happen to have the best shit here.
Yeah.
Some people do have the best coverage available. They also pay way more than anybody else ever will for that healthcare.
That's right.
So it's it's very. And so you said a hot take in tweet 1 and a semi-seasoned take in a self-reply equals lame tweets. Federal government subsidized medical insurance industrial complex means you can only afford overpriced base coverage that still financially ruins you if you have any kind of medical emergency. Get based, which is very correct.
Indeed.
That is correct.
That seems
right?
like a proper
clap.
LP take, correct?
That is a proper LP take.
And it gets
Yes.
better.
And then they said, the Libertarian Party said, I'm sure it'll give you lots to talk about on your podcast or something. So they
Sure
went
does.
they went to your page to
Yep.
try and find dirt.
Yep.
Because they have nothing better to do. They're running the Twitter for the Libertarian Party of Washington.
Yes.
But they're taking
This is another
time,
issue with the Libertarian
Yes,
Party
yes.
is that they fucking
taking time out of, and it goes to the point that someone else in the chat, James, said marketing. Marketing was one of the worst point. PR, marketing in general, the way
Yep.
that you communicate with the country, the people you want to convince, is fucking horrific.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
oh yeah. Oh
Case
yeah.
in point
I agree
right
with that.
here.
Optics. Horrible optics.
Yes,
That's right.
They went to your page to find things to talk shit about you about. And so
Don't begin to even try to attack my argument
No.
because I made your argument better than you did.
Right.
I refuse to take advice from a grown-ass man who uses based unironically
Yes.
in the current year.
Yes.
That's their argument. That's cute.
Yes. So because
I was keeping the gloves on my next tweet.
You said just saying that, pointing out that the incestual relationship between government and the insurance companies exponentially raises the cost for the everyday citizen seems like a better libertarian take than saying it ain't all that bad. It is bad, and the government is the cause of it. It's so true. It's so correct. Like, it's so correct.
It's
And
weird that they're arguing with you about this. It's like actually, it's like so fucking weird that they're not being like, you right? Like,
Right?
They should be like, no, I agree with you. Like my mind is blown. My mind is blown that they even like felt the need to like argue with what you're saying because what you're saying is actually fucking correct. I don't even understand what their point is.
There is no point.
They don't have a point.
They cannot come after my argument. So they're like, well, you're a podcaster.
Yeah.
You're a very failed podcaster. You use the word based unironically. I'm like, bitch, you don't know what kind of
Yes.
waters you're playing in, buddy.
And because they can refute your argument, and they obviously can't say you're right. We fucked up.
Exactly.
So they
And
I'm
just
also
they're like,
very
you're an
pro
idiot.
I'm pro the white pill. You know, I like being optimistic. Like, I believe that we shouldn't be all doom and gloom, but you can't also just like blatantly fucking ignore the truth
Exactly.
that's
Right.
happening in the world. Like, I think we should like try to be optimistic and we should be white pilled, but like, I don't think that means we should like fucking lie to ourselves.
And if you this is really interesting. If you continue to follow their argument, right, of being able to go to the ER and get something solved, right?
Yeah.
That is true. If you, because
Yeah.
you can go and you can even apply for like what's called charity care, stuff like that, right? Okay. These things, they don't go unpaid for.
No.
The cost goes on. It continues. It goes into the system, which increases the cost of health insurance for everybody else who's going. So their argument defeats itself in 2 tweets, that because you can go to the ER and get anything taken care of that someone would die from a few hundred years ago, we have great care.
Yeah.
That is in fact what makes the care horrific. That is what makes
Seems
the
like a
system
very
itself so unattainable and so unsavory for everybody involved with it.
seems like a very statist take, doesn't it?
That is very interesting, dude.
Are they like what? I don't really know much about like the libertarian like party there, but are they more on like the old guard?
Well, it's Washington
They're-
State.
They're
so
old
gonna be
guard, and
very
a lot
left.
of them are leftists. Yeah.
Yeah.
But-
So like the old guard of the Libertarian Party, which
Yeah.
we still have like the party in Massachusetts is split because of the Mises Caucus takeover. So there's the LPMA and then there's the LAMA, which is the old guard. In my opinion, personally, I think that we all need to like grow the fuck up, let go of our differences. If as long as you're an actual fucking libertarian, which is what I said earlier, like if you're not, then you're just in the wrong party, and I don't know why you playing over here. Like that's
Exactly.
what's confusing me. It's like there was this girl when I was involved with the LAMA a few years ago and wanted to do an anti-vax mandate protest. I went to the state committee, and this one girl who's definitely not a fucking libertarian, but was like, I think she was voted as something. I don't remember what her position was, but
Like within the party.
yeah, she was like, she was also like big in like the National Party, and I think Nick what is his name? Swarkis?
Swarkins or something. Yeah.
Worked doing policy for like whatever his policy shit is. She said we can't condone an anti-vax mandate protest because it would be bad optics for the party, even though on the national page of the LP it said we're against mandates, donate now. And I was like, are you fucking joking? You're gonna say it's bad optics? You're literally asking people to donate money because you're the national party saying you're against mandates, but you won't let me organize a party under the LP. Like, go fuck yourself.
Well,
That-
especially when
That's someone that's not a libertarian. In my mind, I'm like, you're just not.
Yeah,
especially
exactly.
when there are dominant members of the Mises Caucus that were actively speaking out against vaccine mandates.
Oh yeah.
So if that's what the leadership of the overall party is doing,
No, but this was before the Mises Caucus.
This was before the takeover.
Yeah,
Okay.
this was before.
This is
was
Joe
before the
Jorgensen
takeover.
era.
okay,
You know,
Yeah.
she was still kind of. She had
she's
a lot of
like
sway.
BLM and whatnot, right?
Yeah. All
Well,
the bad
that
takes.
I actually do, I think that people give her like a little bit too hard of a time. I don't think that. She
I
was
voted Joe
that-
Jorgensen. I mean,
I did too. I
was-
don't think she was that horrible.
of all the
Like,
choices, you know.
I think that she just had a really bad campaign team, like horrible
Oh, for sure.
campaign team. I don't.
Yeah.
You think that she was running her own fucking Twitter? No.
No.
I'm
yeah.
pretty sure she like when people what you said like the BLM takes.
Right.
I heard that wasn't even her, and the person that did it ended up getting fired after.
Yeah.
I
like,
wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, they did.
Donald
I
Trump
think
is
that-
the only person at that high of a level that runs his own Twitter.
Yeah, I don't think that
Exactly.
she is that.
Ain't nobody taking that motherfucker's phone away.
No.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't think she's that bad, and people kind of give her a little bit too hard of a time.
Yeah, it's
and
unfair.
then I think that because they give her that hard of a time, she's now against the Mises Caucus because they went against her so hard, and that's just what people do. They become defensive. And personally, I don't like to take that approach with this type of stuff. Like I like to be like, what's our common ground? Where are we at the same level, and where are we not? And let's see if we're like, if we can like, you know, consolidate our differences. I think that is the mature adult approach to politics, which the Libertarian Party has a really hard time doing.
Because that's what's productive. And in politics, that's what you need is production.
Yeah.
Anything other than that defeats the purpose. If you aren't being productive, then you literally I don't know this for a fact, but I've got to imagine this is where I don't know. This is where it takes. It's very poignant that if you are not part of the problem or you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. If you are not actively working towards making it better, you should fucking leave because you're not helping at all. You're only making shit worse. And this goes from the party level down to the people actively serving in government who are just there to obstruct and to fuck around and to make money and wheel and deal. What's his face?
So
West Virginia. What's
Joe Manchin?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Go back to your houseboat,
like
bro.
this guy is just here to make as much money as possible and then leave. Nancy Pelosi, same deal. You aren't here to fuck around. You're here to wave your huge tits and force people to do
Them
what
heavies,
you want
bro.
and make money and leave. That's the only reason that you're here.
Yeah. And I just want to go back to this for a second because I definitely agree that I think Jo Jorgensen got a raw deal, and she was put up as like the sacrificial lamb in the people that disagreed with the overall Libertarian Party at the time. Because she was the candidate, so she's the one that's out there in front of everybody. But in all reality, just the current makeup of the party at that time was the problem. For me, the Libertarian Party was trying to be just like the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, which is not at all today. I think what the Mises Caucus-led LP stands for at all. They're something different that actually believes in the principles that they say they have. Yeah. Versus the old LP, it was a different era. It was a different time. I mean, Jo Jorgensen definitely she was the poster child for the party at that point because she was the candidate. So I do want to add that context to that. So, I was upset with Jo Jorgensen at the time. But yeah, much like you guys, I voted for her anyways because what else are you gonna do?
I was promoting her campaign.
Yeah,
I was promoting her campaign. I saw like people libertarians being against her, and I was like, you guys are so fucking stupid. Because I was like, the things that you guys are worried about don't fucking matter.
No, man.
Like, none of it fucking matters. Like there was a lot of drama within the LP, like in mass, which like what did matter, like on a local level, like the things that were going on locally fucking mattered, and we needed to deal with that. But like Jo Jorgensen, like what? Like she's fine.
Yeah.
Like I've listened to her on multiple podcasts. I know that people on the left are hating her because she actually did a podcast with the Proud Boys.
Oh,
yeah, nobody talks about that.
Respect.
No, she did a podcast with the Proud Boys, and I remember seeing like a bunch of leftists saying like, look at her, she's like supporting white nationalism or whatever. But nobody fucking talks about like that side. Like I think that she was just like a libertarian who was just doing libertarian shit, had a shitty campaign team who had no idea what the fuck they were doing, unfortunately. And I don't think she was like in as much control. Like I think she delegated a lot. Which that's the bad part if you delegate too much and you delegate to people that you might not be able to fully like trust or understand their views, or you might not be on the same page, then you end up in situations like she did.
Yeah, and that's kind of
and Ron Paul did historically.
Oh yeah, Ron Paul did.
Like he's been there.
and Ron Paul's like the OG when you think about it, as far as our contemporary times are concerned. Yeah. And the dude he's put up on a pedestal like somebody to worship at the end of the day, which a lot of his ideas were fucking money at the time.
We got Dave Smith wearing shirts that say Ron Paul was right.
Ron Paul was right. So. I mean, he was right.
Yeah.
He turned everybody on to the Fed situation. You know what I mean? The Federal Reserve. So let me.
He's the GOAT.
Yes.
Yeah. I do want to ask you this, because you seem to be pretty involved with the Libertarian Party. How did that start? Were you just like a concerned citizen at some point that saw libertarian stuff online and were like, I'm going to try to, like contact your local party office and see how you can volunteer, how that old story goes? Like, how did you get involved with these people?
Well, so like we should probably go like back. Historically, I was actually probably more on the anarcho communist side. I was very far left. I was a communist. I was a leftist. Then I actually started to realize as I got older, working.
When you started to make money.
Well,
and the government
started
tried to take it.
my own business and things like that. Like my ideas started to change, and actually the gateway for me was Thomas Sowell.
Ooh.
I would say Thomas Sowell, Milton Friedman. were the two kind of like gateway economists. Can't even say words. Economists for me. And then I started to still be like, okay, well, maybe like tried to consolidate socialism with those ideas, and it just didn't work. And then eventually I was like, okay, like everything I believed was a lie. And then the whole COVID happened. I started to become more and more libertarian as time went on. I think I was always very socially. I never really changed much on my social opinions. I was never woke. I remember like when I was a leftist and like woke shit was becoming super popular, I was always like, the fuck is this shit? Like I'm as a bisexual, it's like such a small aspect of like who I am as a person. Like I don't need to like use this as like this like as my personality, which it seems like a lot of people within the LGBT community were doing. It's like
It's all that matters.
Most important thing about you is being gay, and in my
Yes.
opinion, it's just not. It's just like who I prefer to fuck. Like that shit doesn't matter, in like the grand scheme of things. So like, I feel like socially, my social opinions haven't really changed that much, except maybe like in small degrees. And then economically was where like huge shifts started to happen. And I would say then when COVID happened, I really started to realize something was fucking wrong. Like something was just completely wrong. And started to get way more engaged in libertarian ideas. And that was kind of what sparked me to get involved with the party en masse.
So the size and control of the government as it stood.
Yeah.
And Massachusetts as a state is pretty fucking controlling.
Oh yeah, I know. It was, and we had like the worst of the worst with like lockdowns, with the vax mandates, with everything. So like that really, and then and when I got canceled too, that kind of like woke me up to some shit.
Oh
like,
yeah.
I just noticed that a lot of things were not right, and it seemed to me like the Libertarian Party were the only party that were based on values that made sense to me. And so I reached out to the Libertarian Party at that time, started going to like local affiliate meetings and stuff like that. But then I realized that they were all fucking leftists, and I got a little disenfranchised because I was like, oh my God, like I thought that this was going to be like actual economic, like people like economically based. But I show up and they're telling me Ron Paul's a racist. And I'm like,
whoa.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like people are saying that Ron Paul's racist.
Well, he's definitely got white privilege.
Yeah. All sorts of shit. So I like couldn't, I fell out of it for a little bit. Tried to like get involved still, but just gave up. Then finally, when I heard about the Mises Caucus takeover and everything like that, I started to get more engaged, like on the other side.
Yeah, like here's some like-minded libertarians. Finally.
Yeah, even though like even some of their takes, like I don't love every fucking take that Dave Smith has. I'm not gonna lie.
Can you give me an example?
I'm trying to think about that too now.
I think it is.
It's okay if you can't. I put you on the spot, but
no, I can. It's because I am socially liberal, and like sometimes it feels like he is socially conservative. That I'm a little nervous that it's what's the word? Like I don't where it's like I'm trying to think how to explain this.
No, you're fine.
Like he aligns libertarianism with he's trying to almost it feels like there's like this alignment that they're some of those people are trying to do with libertarianism and socially conservative-ism.
Yes.
Which in my mind I think that so you can be a libertarian and be socially conservative, but you can be a libertarian and be socially liberal. And I think the party, what makes it unique is that you can be both. And like you should be able to. It's like pluralism at its peak, you know,
It's the
like
whole
you should be
concept.
able, yeah, like, and that's what I love about it, and that's what it needs to keep. I sometimes feel that about, I still like Dave Smith, like, it's not that I don't think that he says anything like that, like, horrendous. It's like I have some concerns with that aspect of it.
Do you think that potentially, because this the Mises caucus, like you're saying, is going to be the dominant part of the Libertarian Party right now? So do you think that is possibly in response to some of the, I'm going to use socially liberal just because that's the term that you're using, but I'm pushing further than that, some of the socially liberal policies and ideology that we're seeing become dominant in the United States, as far as like things that are happening within the government and within aspects that they control, schools and different things like that, businesses, economy,
Like a pendulum swings the other way type of thing.
yes.
Well, yeah, for sure. I think that is exactly what's happening, but I don't think that we should let the pendulum swing back and forth between extremes. I think that we need to just come to a middle ground. Like, I think that instead of allowing the pendulum to go way over here and then go way over here, like, let's just like come back to the center and realize that we're all individuals, and as long as you're not harming anyone, hurting anyone, or using the government to push your ideas, it shouldn't fucking matter. And like, that's the issue, is that there are people using the government to push these ideas on people, and that's wrong.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think we should have any like dominant ideology taking over schools. I don't care if it's Christianity. I don't care what the fuck it is. It shouldn't be. In schools, you should be there to fucking learn. And that's it. Like, learn how to read, learn how to write, learn math, learn history, learn all the stuff. And like, sure, I think that you should be allowed to have like a gender studies elective? Of course. Do I think that we need gender studies in everything? No. You should be able to have a theology elective. You should be able to have these electives where you sign up to learn more about those things. I don't think that should be like the dominant force that is taking over every aspect of the curriculum.
Yeah, the school itself shouldn't have an ideology.
Exactly.
It should just be like, let's teach people some shit.
Unless it's a private school and they are open about that.
Amen.
And the private
if it's
school is like,
publicly
this
funded.
is, like, but publicly funded schools, absolutely not. Even though I'm not really, like, fuck.
Amen.
Because we see a lot of that living in Washington, and I assume you do as well in Massachusetts. There's a lot of leftist ideology that influences the things that our schools teach children. Just the way that things are presented, you know, and there are a lot of people that here that are very unhappy about that. And there's a ton of, you know, protests that's happened over the last few years. Even if you don't talk about like what's taught in the schools, the way that things were handled happened along an ideological basis that people did not agree with. And so there was the rates in which children are being unenrolled from our public schools is extremely high.
Yeah.
And the homeschooling has become very high, and different like learning pods, all kinds of variants of that. I mean, outside of public school really is probably a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, this is why we need school choice.
Hey, we like school choice.
Like, we need to be able to create more competition between the schools so that they have to actually like listen to
and
people.
be good schools.
Like, private schools are expensive, so because of that, you can't, like, there are a lot of people that have to put their kids in public school because they have no choice. Like, and that's why if you have school choice or a voucher system or something like along those lines, you have more control over that aspect, which is done really well in Milwaukee. Yeah, they did a school voucher system in Milwaukee, actually, and it's done really well. They did a study, and it turned out that like there's a high percentage of crime, like the people that went through this program were less likely to commit crimes, higher graduation rates, higher school performance.
This was just within the city of Milwaukee.
Yeah, like because they've been doing them within like small scale. Yeah, but I think that like. It should just be mass scale, obviously.
And I think the school voucher thing is a really positive idea in the current structure, because parents and taxpayers in general have such little control and input over what is taught at public schools, partially because of the federalized structure that so much of it comes from the top down.
Yeah.
But even on the curriculum that can be chosen, there is no input virtually from the actual people who pay for the schools to exist. It is just the administrators of the schools that choose because, and their justification obviously is, well, because we're teachers and we know what we're doing and we've gone to school for all these times and we know what the children need to learn. But that's not, I do not think that it is an effective way for schooling to be done for children. So I think that a system where the money follows the child and parents have more choice over where the child can go is a much, much better idea.
Oh, look at this.
Oh yeah. Do you know how much it costs? Okay, in Massachusetts, the state average on how much it costs the federal government per pupil is $19,000 a year. $19,000
Per kid?
Like if you per kid a year.
Jesus.
Yeah. And like that's the government.
Sounds like government rates
is
to me.
funding that. No, and so like okay, if you got a voucher of this money that you're putting in, you know that fucking like that. What the fuck are they spending that on? Like I don't even fucking know. But allegedly, 19,000 is the state average in Mass. So if you got a voucher for that money, like to go to put your school in Waldorf or Montessori is cheaper than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
like it's cheaper to put your
$19,000?
it's cheaper to put your kid in like a really nice private school.
And then you can still afford school supplies, uniforms if the school requires it. I mean, any number of things that are going to come out afterwards. Yeah. And I just
vote in the school act.
Vote in the school act.
Just within the last 2 weeks was on a fucking tirade at work because when we were getting coffee, I was talking to some of the other people some of our coworkers about.
I remember this.
It started at cost of different extracurriculars. Like it was a woman whose daughter was in dance and she was talking about how fucking expensive dance was. And she's like, I'm paying these people thousands of dollars. And then I just spent $300 on tickets and like all this stuff. And I was upset for her that she had to pay money like that for tickets to watch her daughter dance after she's paying thousands of dollars for her to learn to dance. Yeah. And then one of our other coworkers is talking about how his daughter plays basketball for the schools, and he was saying that he was having to like buy tickets to gain entrance to the games. And
into a public school.
I became very upset. It's
because of the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy is what we're paying for, and this is the same issue in healthcare. I was talking to my friend that's a nurse, and he was telling me this as well. He's like, all of this money, it ain't going to the education. It ain't going to the healthcare. It's the bloated fucking bureaucry.
Yes.
And paying all these motherfuckers salaries. Like that is the fucking problem. Well, I also think that there's waste.
Definitely.
I think that's another issue.
It goes hand in hand.
Huge like 19,000. Like I can't even like fathom. I'm like $19,000 a year per student. Like how, like, maybe people in like nice neighborhoods are maybe seeing that, but like the average student in Boston public schools are definitely not. Ooh. And we have high as fuck taxes. I don't know. So I get very heated about this.
Yes,
as you should.
That was precisely that neither of my children are of school age, so they're not in public school. I just bought a house this year, so I'm actively paying property taxes that are going to a school that my children will never attend because I will not send them to our public schools. But I became very upset for our coworker because I asked him, I said, can you explain to me why you're having to do this? Because you had to pay for her to play basketball, right? His daughter. And he said, well, yeah. And I said, so can you explain to me why you're paying property taxes that fund this school? You are then required to pay an additional fee for her to play this sport. You are then required to pay additional fees to attend her games that you've already paid for her to play. So you asked the athletic director why this is? No, it's just how it is. This is ridiculous.
I think the average principal makes like what, 200K. Like, so, like, the teachers don't make that much.
No.
But, like,
the administrators.
It's the faculty.
The administrators.
Like, administrators, that's who it is. Like,
this is the bean counters at the commune.
Yeah, like, the bean counters.
That's right. They're not doing the actual... They're running the show. They need that higher paycheck. It's a stressful job. And I could tell you, like, I know someone that was a vice principal and then became a principal and all that. Very stressful job. do not envy that person that whatsoever. But also, isn't it kind of public service? That's generally speaking, thankless jobs, public service. That's kind of, you're there not for the money, but also you're there for the kids. You're there for the betterment of society and all this stuff. You kind of sound super shitty, but also this is what the job is.
Right.
So this is kind of the deal. If there's a pay disparity somewhere,
being a firefighter,
well, it's not just the principal though. That's the
no,
problem.
it's all.
It's
the
like
people.
all the administration,
Yeah.
and like especially the bigger the school, the fucking more administrators there are, and it's always it's the same thing with the government. It's like everything, you know, like it gets bloated and like money's going in all sorts of weird places. Also, they're just probably just not good at spending it, blowing it in stupid places, like that. Yeah.
Well, if they're anything like the federal government, there's a different price for anything government related because the government has the deepest pockets in the world. So everything is exponentially more expensive. And I want to read a couple of these chats here. James said every year for the start of the school year, I spend at least $500 on school supplies. I thought I was paying taxes for this already. Word.
That's
like
true.
to the basketball thing.
Yeah.
You sign your kid up for basketball at a publicly funded school. You'd kind of expect, like, I bet you the shoes should come with it. The jerseys should come with it. Like, you shouldn't have to spend a dime because you're already paying into the system anyways. Not to mention,
have you looked into the School Act?
I have not looked into the School Act that much.
I think it was proposed by Rand Paul. I
No,
think he
hot
was the
dog.
one, and it is about
I'm writing it down.
he's putting well, it's obviously hasn't passed or even
Right.
like gone.
Been
it hasn't
to the
even passed.
table.
Times,
Yeah, it hasn't, but it's
Kevin
really
McCarthy.
good. It's about basically it's kind of like a voucher system, but it would work for homeschoolers, like everything. You would basically get the funding for your school supplies, all of that stuff. It's very I'm all about it.
So I think is good on many levels, but one of the things that I really appreciate about that idea is my wife is a stay-at-home mom, right? So she has 2 children that she stays at home with. Under something like that, she would be compensated in a way that I feel she should be already for the labor that she does at home. You know, I tell her all the time, her job is harder than mine. I work outside of the home. I work a traditional job. Her job is harder than mine at home with our children. The fact that she doesn't receive any form of compensation seems very weird to me because her job is harder. It's more in a non-fiscal sense, it is more valuable. Her job is much more valuable than what I am doing, in my opinion. I have a very good job that does a very important thing, I think, for a lot of children. It helps a lot of people. But in my personal life, her job is more important.
I mean, I wouldn't say that she would be getting financial compensation, though, because homeschooling, like, it depends on what route you go into, but homeschooling can also be pretty expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly.
So that money would end up going to the education aspect of
Yeah, and that's, I
homeschooling
was
your
just going to
child.
say, we have a patron of ours, actually, I'm proud to say, Mr. Joseph Garrett in the chat. They homeschool their kids.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if he lived in Massachusetts, how beneficial it would be to get a $19,000 check from the government? Not just in the system we have.
It would, at the very least, not create a deficit for our children to be educated in the way that we think is more beneficial.
Yeah, and at that point, like, it would help offset the cost of wanting to take a decision like that and homeschool your kids.
Yeah.
Because that would essentially be a part-time job.
And that's
coverage,
probably
you know what I mean?
That is the point that I'm making, and probably a better way to explain it other than her being compensated. It does not cost us to educate our children in a way that we find more beneficial.
Yep. Like if you choose to homeschool, which at this point I'm pretty sure you're planning on, but we don't need to get into that. But that would be a way to offset things. As soon as your kids become of school age, I mean, parents are teaching their kids from the moment they pop out, basically. That's generally speaking how I observe it. I don't have kids, so I'm speaking out of school here, but it seems to me once you realize
the kid reads at 4,
he's a beast,
we
bro.
did that.
He's a beast. My godson, I'm very proud to say. But the minute they're able to enroll in public school, right, whatever age that is, kindergarten I think is the standard, right?
5, yeah.
That check should be coming, because if you choose to homeschool, instantly right there, boom, you're good to go. You're not going to public school. Well, here's the funding that we provide every single year in taxes, in subsidies from the Fed, all that shit. There's the check on your doorstep, or let's fucking be all weird about it because the government is. You get a monthly check.
Well, you
in the
know
mail
they're
or
not
something.
gonna. If they did ever put in a voucher system, you know for a fact it's not gonna be 19,000.
Fuck
They're
no.
gonna cut that shit down. Like it's not gonna be what they spend per pupil.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
Like-
the teachers' unions will go half of it.
And it won't be a check. It will be the way that food stamps
voucher.
used to be.
Yeah.
Where
It would be a voucher.
Yeah.
You know, or like how WIC is now, or at least,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
at least when
You could go buy
when I
school
experienced
supplies.
It, like my sister was on
With
WIC
this
with her
card.
first kid, and they would give you literally a check that would say on it the items that you could get. And
Mm-hmm.
that's precisely how it would be if there was a voucher
Yeah.
system. That it would be this piece of paper is
Yep.
good for these things.
Yeah.
It would not be money that you could spend.
I don't understand why Democrats are so fucking against school choice with like their platform. I like people like Elizabeth Warren and shit. Like I fully don't understand it. Like why? Why do they? Is it because of like they got like connections with like
School,
the public
teachers'
schools,
unions?
like the teachers unions? Like
Yeah.
but then it's
Definitely-
like why do teachers unions?
They're definitely
Word.
they're definitely in bed with the teachers unions. And my answer to you would be because they are ideologically driven. And so it's not about what's best for children. It is what is best for their ideology. And that's why they don't
And how
want
is it
school choice.
ideologically not like I guess I don't understand this because I didn't start learning about school choice and everything probably until Milton Friedman was the person that introduced me to that idea, and it just made like logical sense to me. Like I was
He's
like,
good at
yeah,
that.
why the fuck not? Like this makes sense. But I don't. Is it because that it came from more of from the right side that they need to just be like, this is a bad idea?
You know
Because-
what?
Probably part of it.
Yeah,
but
like-
I'd be really curious. Let's say if I was a politician that was going to run up against Elizabeth Warren at some point, Republican or whoever the fuck's going to run against, because she's up for re-election at some point soon.
Yeah.
Because she is the one that wrote that book, The Two-Parent Trap, which is a very good economic take on how the current economic system makes both parents work all the time, right? It's a two-income trap. You have to do it. It was a pretty base book at the end of the day.
James
That's her.
touched on
Oh,
that.
I've never.
James
I
touched on it?
haven't read
Yes.
that.
Not
Maybe
the
I
book
should
in
check it
particular,
out.
but
Oh,
James,
yeah, you should. It's actually not bad.
not the book in
It's not
particular,
bad.
but James said, don't forget about daycare cost $800
Oh, yeah.
per week. Sometimes it's cheaper for one parent not to work. And that's precisely
yeah.
well, that's precisely the position that Jordan and I are in, that she
Exactly.
doesn't work, because if she did work, all of her money would go
to daycare.
for
To
entire
pay
check.
for someone else to raise your kid for you so
Yes.
that you can work for someone to raise your own
Yes,
kid.
it
And
makes
so
fiscal sense for me to work more.
yeah,
than
and if
for her
she
to
has
stay
the
home.
standpoint, if Elizabeth Warren is anti-school choice,
Mm-hmm.
you would wonder why how she justifies her take on the two-parent trap at that point.
Right.
I don't know. Well, she also is anti-school choice, but her kids went to public and private school because she has the financial privilege to do that.
Because she
Because
has
school choice, you can have school choice only if you have money.
Money,
Right.
Like,
if you're
but
doing
that's the
insider
thing.
trading
So
as a fucking politician.
she could do school choice for her children, but
Yeah.
she doesn't think that the average person should be able to do that.
Nah,
Like-
nah, you shouldn't do that. You know, all those what's all them charter schools they're just bad. They're just frauds to defraud the American people and give shitty educations to people, right?
We had that on the ballot like a few years ago, and it didn't pass.
In mass,
Yeah.
charter schools or school choice.
It was charter schools. I'm more school choice. I mean, I don't have an issue with charter schools, but I just like baseline school choice.
Yeah,
Like-
charter schools came before school choice,
What is
and
a
then
charter
once
school?
like school choice, charter schools are
Government funded, right?
yeah, they're government subsidized private schools.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you
that's
still
what it
have
is.
to go, like, you still have to write, just like public schools, you have to have the right curriculum. It has to be accredited,
Okay.
so on and so forth. But they could be privately run. Some people, I think
They have like
I don't
board of
wanna-
directors or whatever.
there's been some famous top tier sports talent. I want to say it was LeBron that tried to do a couple of them at one point, but I
LeBron
don't
has
want to.
started some schools.
Yeah. And those would be charter schools.
Okay.
You know, you have a
Work
benevolent.
with the government. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I
you,
gotcha.
you have somebody, a benevolent philanthropist that
Yeah.
wants to put up a bunch of money to start a school, and then they meet the requirements on the curriculum, blah, 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 and then they get subsidized by the Fed as well. And then it becomes something
Right,
that you can
okay,
just send your kids
so-
to.
Okay, so Thomas Sowell wrote about this in
Yeah,
discrimination.
Thomas
and
Sowell's
disparity,
very big on
in-
charter schools.
In New York, there's a couple of different charter schools,
Yeah.
and so he talked about the different performance. For our book club, right? February was Thomas Sowell. We did discrimination and disparities. So he talked about. I don't remember what the names of the schools are, but the different charter schools in New York City that are based around minority students and the difference in the performance in the students that went there.
That was
And-
pretty badass, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting when there's a financial incentive to have successful students, student outcomes generally become better.
And I think at those schools, if I remember correctly, there was a lottery and a test. Like anybody could get in, but you still had to pass this prerequisite test to gain entrance. But the lottery was open to anybody in the given area. I believe that is how these particular schools were run. And so it was still, anyone could go, but you just also had to fucking, then there was like really strict requirements for working. Like you couldn't fuck off when you were there. There was very high.
Academic standards.
Yes. Yeah.
Now that actually brings up another question I have now just about school choice. With school choice comes possible overcrowding of good schools and exodus from bad schools. How do we handle that in the world for school choice?
The bad schools should go out of business.
Yeah, but then you still, what I'm saying is at one point there's a, like if there's a financial incentive,
there'll be more incentive for people to start good schools.
and then you could expand those schools to hold more kids.
Yeah, I think that there'll be more incentive for the good schools. I think that this is the Democrats' argument, is that if we have school choice, it's going to make all the public schools like be bad because they're going to lose funding because people are going to leave. And it's like, yeah, because your school sucks. Make your school better, and then people won't want to leave. Like this shouldn't be that difficult. Like
with the current, I don't disagree with you. I agree with you. I'm just thinking about the practical application, and because of the way that the public school system is federalized, it would take a massive overhaul in the top-down curriculum of public schools, because so many, I mean, that's how they're based around a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And so a bunch of those schools, it would be a tough overhaul to coincide with that.
Yeah.
it's not easy at first.
Yeah.
I
Never
think
is,
that,
right?
that becomes very clear when school choice is implemented, is that there is like a hard period, but you have to get through that, because in the long term it's going to be better for everybody. Like I think
Yeah.
that's the it's like, yeah, but this is the answer. Like it's like we're going to just keep dealing with bad schools just because people don't want to deal with like a little bit of a struggle to get to better schools.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense to me. I think that like the answer is we want to make sure that we get everyone in good schools as soon as we can.
Well,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think so. Let me steel man you for a second, right? Just because I'm just thinking about the counter arguments. So I think if I was a parent who, for one reason or another, I can afford it now with a voucher, but my kid still has to stay at this shittier school because I can't take him to another one, or for whatever, A, Y, or Z, why I can't do this, right?
Well, I would need to know why you can't do it. Because if it's transportation, I think that that's also another thing that would have to be addressed, is figuring out school transportation for these schools. But the thing is, it depends on where you live. So like,
Yeah.
I remember, like, I grew up in like the middle of nowhere, Maine, right? And I was forced to go to the school that was in my district, even though my mom wanted me to go to a school that was in the district over, and they were both public schools, but I wasn't even allowed to go to the other public school. I was forced to go to the public school in my district. Like even that, like I'm not even just saying like school choice just between private and public. Like you should just be able to choose what school your kid goes to.
Certainly.
Yeah.
And I'm
With one public school is better than another public school, you should be able to send your kid to the other public school regardless of like where you live and like the town lines. You know, because that's what seems to be the.
And I'm not talking about district restrictions. I'm not talking about that. That's why I'm not giving a specific reason, because I could come up with any number of reasons why someone would say I can't take my kid out of this school and put them in the one that I would prefer.
But why? Can you give me one other than transportation? Just so I can like think of a reason.
I would rather finish my question first
Okay,
because I
sorry.
think that's more relevant than the different
Okay.
reasons why someone wouldn't be able to take them, right? Transportation
Okay.
is a big one because I know that I had to go to a certain school because my mom was a single parent and literally couldn't drive me and pick me up from school. I had to go to this certain school because of transportation. So that's the first one I'm giving, is that I know that that can be a limiting factor. So I think that that is a relevant reason. And if you give me time after this, I can try and think of more if you want. But my question, right, to try and steelman the argument is the concern from a lot of those parents are going to be if they can't take their kid out of that school and it goes to shit. The children who can't leave the worst schools will receive a garbage education even worse than before because they can't leave. And even though it's a difficult time, should we subjugate these children to horrific education because they can't go to another school even with this modified system?
I would like to hope that the school that school would improve. Like
Right,
that
but
they would if they see kids are leaving, that should be a signal that, oh, we need to change something.
But that
we
can't happen over 1 year. And that's, you're talking about there will be a rough adjustment period. So I'm talking about in that adjustment period, be it 3 years, 5 years, however long it is, right? For a child who only goes to school for 12 years, 3 years is not a negligible amount of time that will impact their learning in some way and their development.
And we saw that during COVID.
So my
2
question
years
is,
was a lot.
what do you do about those kids that can't leave the shittier schools, even though money's being pulled from them and the education gets worse? If the schools are trying to improve, but in that adjustment period, they're still garbage. Do we just give those kids, like, are we just okay with those kids getting a shit education because this is the rough adjustment period?
Sacrificing portions of a generation to a better ideal.
I mean, it could also be like slow rollout. Like, like I figure out a way to do it that isn't a complete 100% impact. I guess that's why in a lot of the voucher systems, how they do it is they do have a limit to how many kids can join the voucher system. So if you do like a slow rollout of it, it might have less of an impact on the schools. And hopefully the schools will get the signal in that time period. Oh, we need to improve. If they see, it's because a few kids isn't going to make a huge difference in a fucking school with a class of fucking 300 kids, like with each class. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
So I would have to think that, like, how you could roll it out slowly. With transportation, I feel like there would be a way to do almost like a mutual aid fund or something where you'd create almost like Uber buses.
Oh my God. Just think about the private industry that could pop up from something like that. Might be. And then if you're getting your money back. Yeah. And so a couple thoughts on the whole concept, right?
I mean, that's I think that's fine. I don't want to dive too deep into that concept, but
because
you're talking about expanding the pool of children or the pool of people that you're trusting your children with, and there's already question about the amount of people that you're fucking leaving
already
them with
doing
anyway,
it with. So
I mean, you already do that with bus drivers.
that's but
that's
the
what he's
benefit,
saying.
and that's what I'm saying. But the only and I hesitate to even say benefit because bad shit happens with bus drivers. But the only benefit to that is that they receive a strict background check, like teachers
Why can't
do.
we? Well, we would have to do that as well. If it's going to be basically like an Uber for school children, it would have to also abide by the guidelines that a bus driver goes through.
Yeah. And so I'm going to address a couple things here because we got some questions in the chat about this. And also I want to kind of reiterate the importance of the republic nature of our country. There are states and municipalities and cities implementing these things right now.
The voucher program.
Testing out different systems. Every one of them slightly different, various school choice systems, voucher systems, whatever it is. They're through these programs, they're going to find these pinch points. They're going to find the issues that come up. And they're going to work out their own ways of trying to resolve those. And generally speaking, that will create, assuming the stats are where they're at now, I mean, continuing the trends of this more or less being a very successful program with successful outcomes. Yeah.
There are contradictory stats. I will say that.
There 100%. Yeah.
But they're not bad. All the stats will say there's no different.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
if there's no
every
different
stat
than
I've
also
found-
fuck the government, get out. If my kid's going to end up the same, I'd rather not have the government
We
involved.
talked about that a lot in
But,
part one of
yeah.
like you can find statistics to support
Exactly.
any argument at any given time.
I was just going to say, because we
Yeah.
talked about stats for
But
and the
there
problems with them.
hasn't been any statistics that have said that school choice was negative.
Exactly.
That had a
Yeah.
negative effect on the
Yes.
kids.
And
The
as-
only statistics has been that there has, and graduation rates has been consistent. That they are more likely to graduate, but the statistics that have been inconsistent have been whether or not their school, their performance was better.
Yeah.
And in some, it has been yes, but then there's been some that have said no difference.
Yeah.
But it depended on when they tested them.
And
So the longer that they were in the school choice program, the better chances they were to have improvement.
Yes.
But if you did the test after a year or two, less likely.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because you need time for shit to set.
Right.
But yeah, I think as these small experiments become more and more common, they're going to find more and more solutions to the problems they run into. And this, like I said before, this is why we have a republic. At the end of the day, the states are all supposed to be little fucking petri dishes for them to run their own shit and figure it out. And then if it's a good idea, other people can adopt it. It's a wonderful program at the end of the day when you really think about it. If things are operating in that utopian manner, which we all know they don't because of the federal government's involvement. But that's why a lot of these questions that we keep bringing up about something like school choice, there are lots and lots and lots of questions to be had. And most of them are very, very specific to individual families, individual locations. I'm sure it works much easier in a city with good public transport.
Yes.
In rural places like this, very, very different. Funding mechanisms are also very important. How are you getting, is the government just diverting funds over to this other school, which leaves the parents out in the cold, so then their transportation costs don't get covered, or they're less time at work, which means they can't pay the bills, which means we're not doing this thing. Sorry, kid, you got to go to this school because otherwise you don't have a fucking house anymore.
Right.
Like all these types of questions will be solved through a decentralized experimentation process that was originally designed for our republic. So this is all just kicking off now. I think generally speaking, like we've talked about, to this point, the stats seem to be going the right direction.
Yeah.
Trends seem to be good. Let's let this bitch cook and.
I'm just stealing an argument.
And
Don't
I
worry
think
about
they'll-
that.
I think
I'm
that
not
they'll
fighting
be,
it.
And I because I have a lot of the same questions.
Yeah.
That I can sit here all day and come up with like, well, what about this scenario? What about that scenario? And I have lots of questions, and unfortunately, I don't think most people have answers right now.
No.
But I think the biggest question about school choice is always funding.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, if you get that check as a parent, or if you are tax exempt from your property taxes, and then on top of that, the kick in from the Fed or the state, whatever all these block grants are and shit like that, whatever money is going to your kid, that 19 grand in Massachusetts or whatever, if there's a way to funnel all that money to the parent and then have them figure it out, as difficult as a decision as that might be, that's the decision I'm most comfortable with, because then at the end of the day, the only person standing in the way of this kid having a good education, more or less, is the parent and their ability to figure out how to get the best for their kid.
And I think that there
Personal
can be market
responsibility.
solutions for that. And also voluntary, and market solutions also utilizing the voucher system. Do you know, for example, there's funding that goes into buses that would be a part of that voucher for the education, because all schools have a bus system. So if you would take that portion to put into some sort of market solution like Ubers for buses, you wouldn't have to worry about that issue.
Yeah. Or I live pretty far out in the sticks. I think you can you can justify that. If every parent in this community got all those dollars, if we could solve the accreditation problem on top of this, what's to stop the community from creating a small community school for the kids in their community?
In this neighborhood.
Yeah. Something like that. You know what I mean? There's endless solutions as long as the barriers.
The accreditation issue is an issue that
It's
goes along
huge.
with school choice, 100%.
Is
those are
accreditation
two
at
issues
all-
that are very connected.
Are they in that school act?
No, that's a separate act. It's called the
But there is an
Heroes Act.
The Heroes
Yeah.
Act?
Yeah, well,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that the Heroes Act, I don't know if that just discuss higher education more so, but like I think that there is it's actually yeah, it's that's a I'm not sure if it's for K through 12. Though I
Like a
like
higher
that
ed,
is a
possibly.
yeah, this is the Heroes Act is I think primarily for higher education. And the accreditation issue there, like the accreditation monopoly situation going on.
Yeah,
But
that's a
I do
problem.
think that like they're connected in a way. Like if
100%.
we have solved that issue first too, it would make school choice a lot easier.
The accreditation issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you remember conversations we had at one point with a particular friend of ours about the possibility of starting a private school?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? The biggest hurdle to overcome is accreditation, because that means that your school education actually means something to the kid coming out the back end. That high school diploma they walk out with is actually recognized by the state, and so they're actually considered somebody with a high school diploma. It's really, and it gets worse when you get into colleges, but just as far as like K through 12 primary school type of thing, it's already super fucking bad. I mean, the reason we have all these standardized tests and all this nonsense curriculum is because of the funding that is granted by the federal government if you qualify through this particular accreditation program. Your curriculum has to be accredited by this accreditation
Metric.
they're not companies, but yeah, and then you're qualified to receive federal block grants. But if you don't, you're not qualified for those federal
And so
block
the
grants.
standardized tests are in response to the ability of the schools to be accredited based off of their performance.
No, the curriculum that is set. The tests are supposed to be gauges on whether or not this system is working, the curriculum is working. This is George W. Bush. This is George W. Bush,
Right.
No Child Left Behind. This is what that system
I
has brought
remember
us.
when they started.
Yeah.
I remember taking
and their state level ones, and
yeah,
it's all
ours
this
was
stuff.
it was called the WASL when we
Yes, the
first
WASL.
started. When we first started taking it, it was the Washington Assessment of Student Learning.
Yes.
That was what it was called at first, and I don't know what it's called now, but it changed name multiple times when I was in school.
Which is unfortunate. I
And
remember
even,
the WASL.
Even when I was suspended and my teachers weren't giving me work, I was still required to come in and take a test that I was not equipped to pass.
Yeah, because you're still on their fucking
Yes.
roster.
Yes. And I've never, you know the level of my intelligence.
Indeed.
I never passed the standardized testing in school. There wasn't a single time in which I passed all of the standardized tests. So there's no doubt that they're not an adequate indicator.
No, some people are just bad testers too.
Yeah,
Word.
there's not an adequate
Like-
indicator of how intelligent somebody is, nor is the arbitrary threshold designated by the federal government, state government, county government that dictates whether or not that child gets their diploma.
I think it should be the parents' choice. Like, I think there should be transparency on the
Hey.
curriculum for the kid, for the parents. And like, it should be their choice on whether or not that curriculum is what they want their child to learn or not. And
And-
whether or not that should be their decision, in
And
my
that
opinion.
doesn't really happen here. Like parents, there are PTSA meetings and stuff like that, school board meetings where supposedly parents can go and weigh in on the curriculum.
Yeah.
But those suggestions are never taken into consideration. They're listened to and ignored.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just like every other city council meeting where people are allowed to make
yeah.
comment. And that's what I was saying earlier, that like I know personally of our boss's daughter was a leader of a small protest at the local school district because of the way that things were handled during COVID, and nothing
Based.
changed because they
No.
don't care. It doesn't matter. They just watch the children leave, and then they continue to complain to the federal government that they can't do their job until they get more money. And they hold things up. They hold fucking strikes and protests and all kinds of bullshit because they refuse to do their job, in my opinion, which is what Brandy is saying, to teach the children what their parents want them to learn.
Yes.
And that changes based on community, and that's why it's so fucking
yeah.
important for those parents to have input.
And not okay. And let me.
This
just
is why we need a decentralized approach to education.
That's right.
There's probably,
Decentralization is generally the answer all around.
Keyword decentralization is literally like my favorite word.
I'm sure there is
Decentralization and nuance. Those are my two favorite words.
Fucking
nuance.
nerd.
I like to tell my wife tells me I'm very complicated, and I tell her I'm very nuanced.
Yeah.
I am not complicated.
Yeah.
I'm very nuanced.
That,
I was like, you're actually pretty simple. You just
Yes.
you're very nuanced.
Very nuanced.
And I just want to say this too, because so often, when I was in high school, I was in like the video club, or
The
not the
AV
club,
club?
but not the AV club, but I took a video class, like a
Okay.
couple of them, like a bunch of multimedia things, and I would go for extra credit and shit like that. We would, people from our class would volunteer to go and shoot the PTA meetings for public access television.
Okay.
Right. We basically just stood there and make sure the camera was pointing in the right direction. But,
Right.
you know, the teacher actually hooked everything up. But if I was of the mind to be paying attention to such things at that time, I would have realized that the only people in the audience were parents, because they're the only ones that feel they have a vested interest in the outcomes of their schools because their kids go there. And I think that's wrong. I would be very, very happy if property owners who pay property tax, who have morals and values that they think their community should hold, go to these same PTA meetings and raise a ruckus, even if they don't have fucking kids at that school, because
right.
they're paying for this. They may be choosing not to have kids, and they may still want the community to have better schooling outcomes in their view, because they fucking pay for it. And I think they should definitely have a voice in those things. And half the people on those goddamn PTA boards don't have fucking kids at the school either. Because that's just,
Right.
they ran for PTA because that's the stepping stone for most politicians. They want to get into government somehow.
Something
and
small.
PTA is one of the best ways to put your foot in the door, to get that door just cracked open a little bit.
We had our friend Josh on a few months ago, and he's a teacher in like a local-ish school. And I don't know if you remember this exact interaction, but I said to him, I made the claim similar to what you just did, that anybody who pays taxes that go into the school should have access to the curriculum of any teacher that works at that school. And he questioned why people should have access to this information. Why should teachers have to go out of their way to publish this? Why should they have to do this? And I said precisely that, because anybody who is paying money for these children to go to school should have some form of input into what the children are learning. And it's wild that they just don't even
That should
think
be
about it.
common sense.
Yes.
It's just common sense.
But they don't even, it's not just that the government doesn't consider that. The people paying the taxes don't consider that. They see it happen. They watch the news clips. They get upset about it. And they say, I can't believe that our children are being taught these things. But they don't go and try and affect change in what's happening. They just complain about it on the back end. And I wonder, as I'm talking about, I have to wonder how many people, at their own fault, don't even consider that if they own a home and are paying property taxes, that they are paying for this and they should have some input on it. Like, I wonder how many
Like,
people
we're not
even
going
are-
to PTA meetings. We could.
No.
But we're not.
I guess then there's like the whole, and now I'm just thinking of a counter argument to my school choice point. So
I love it.
Healthy.
That's, yes.
It's called healthy thinking.
Can I try the Apple one?
So
Make sure it's still good.
a bunch of people that pay in, you know, they're paying taxes. Their taxes are
Yes.
going to
It's a little
schools,
rough around the
but
edges,
their
but-
kids don't go to school. They don't get a voucher. How is
Nope.
that fair?
Yeah,
Do
give
you know
me
what
my
I mean?
fucking
Like, I
money
can
back.
see that being a thing where people are like, well, I don't have a kid. I want a voucher. Give me my
Yes.
voucher.
Yes.
Like, which really, but then, and it does come down to the fact that it shouldn't be costing this much in general. And I think that
No.
what would happen in the end with school choice is that it will get cheaper because the market will regulate. The market is not regulated right now.
No.
And the market will begin to regulate itself if we had school choice and we had the government stop fucking putting its grubby little hands in everything.
I think if it was given in cash to the parents, then yes. But if it's done like we're talking about, in the you're not. I'm thinking the same with you because I don't disagree with you. I'm only thinking a free market thing works in a monetary fashion. If the parents are being given money that they then give to the schools, I agree with you. I think the cost would go down. If it's a set, this is the voucher you get that's worth $19,000. Give this to the school and they'll give you whatever. They don't have any incentive to make it cost less because the government is going to give you what they're going to give you. But if they're giving it to the parents and the parents then have the cash to decide, I think you're very much correct that it would. That's going to impact how the schools invest that money. They're going to try and find ways to cut corners, things they can cut out, administrators they don't need, things like that.
Almost like a tax return.
Yes.
For the school.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find just our local state per capita number. Because I'm wondering what that is. Because I can imagine it's fucking astronomical.
It's probably very high. Yeah.
You could probably look it up.
Well, the property tax, I mean, I imagine this goes everywhere, but ours go up consistently. Every fucking year, the property taxes are going up here. Since I was a child, I've been hearing adults complain about them. And it's only now that I bought a house. And I'm like, these fucking rat bastards are stealing from my fucking pockets.
Yeah, and they're trying to pass a law right now in our state
That's what's funny is like the people that are all about like high taxes are typically people that don't pay them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very,
I know a few
very
people.
clear.
I know a few people.
Wait, people that pay high taxes and still just like all about it.
People that don't pay their taxes and complain about taxes.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Based.
I see what you mean there.
So this is the Office of Financial Management of the state.
Okay.
K through 12 education expenditures per capita. That seems very vague in the way they label that. Washington state and local government K through 12 education expenditures per capita, $2,665.
What? That can't be right.
That can't be right at all. Inflation adjusted to $2020.
That can't be right.
No, that can't be right at all. So I'm wondering how they're breaking that down.
That's their expenditures. That must be what they're putting out of their funding, not the overall cost per child of the early education.
Because the vast majority of public school funding doesn't come even from the state.
No.
It comes from the federal government.
Yes.
So they're just being like,
that
hey,
must be what they are putting into per child, which is just over $2,000.
Your property taxes are going towards $3,000 back in 2020 before they printed $4 fucking trillion, by the way. But that still doesn't seem it's going to take more than a cursory Google, which I think is part of the problem.
Gotta get deeper in there.
Part of the problem.
Joseph keeps saying that we have a cultural problem. Joseph, what are you? And maybe this is what we say. So the nuclear family is the solution and is under attack. Culturally, we have a problem. Are you sure? I've never failed a test. Oh, people bad at testing. 94 on the Stanford 9 in math and failed math. Failed English 4 years in a row in middle school and took one placement test. Ranked post-secondary and was enrolled in advanced English to start high school. The testing, the system is not good. So it's Joseph is talking about just the disparity in his general testing and where he actually placed in high school. And he says, yes, it would be the free market is the best solution. Not every child will make it through. Then he said, again, we have a cultural problem. He said, I pay my fair share, and obviously I think taxation is theft. They don't spend my taxes wisely. I think that's probably correct. Yeah.
That's like a big problem. We need like more government transparency on where taxes are actually going.
Yes.
Which we do not have.
We talked a few episodes ago about the defense budget and the Department of Defense failing their audit for the 5th or 6th, 7th time in a row, whatever it is, the inability to account for 2/3 of the money that is allocated to them every single year, and just how ludicrous that of a concept that is, that they're given trillions of dollars or billions of dollars in. Like, we don't know. It's somewhere. It's definitely somewhere, but either we can't tell you or we don't know. And
or they just can't tell us, and like
yes,
they won't tell us.
That could be.
Did you see the Jon Stewart interview with the assistant director of the Department of Defense or whatever it was a couple weeks ago?
Yes.
And she was like, because he was trying to push that concept of the audit of the Defense Department, and he's like, how do you want me to how can I not perceive this as waste and abuse?
She's like, how would you even go about that? What the fuck do you mean? How would you go about it?
That's your job.
What things do you have? What assets do you own? Can you account for them? All this money we gave you last year, where did it go? You don't have any left over. You spent it all. You spent even more than that because that's how you're telling us you need more money. So where did it go? What did you spend it on? You're forcing people to keep receipts. Where is the money?
Yes.
Where did it go? It's such a ludicrous thing for her to fucking say. Yeah, and then to push back on the idea that it's corruption is insanity.
Mm-hmm.
Jon Stewart's like half based and then like half like not.
They got to him.
So
they
much.
got to him somehow because I don't know. And maybe he always was that way on the back end. We just only saw him on TV, so you only saw like the based portion of it,
The Daily Show portion of
I
it.
don't know, but yeah, it's a sad back and forth.
I think he's ideologically possessed.
Ooh.
I think I think a lot of I think that like I think Bill Maher isn't, though he's like I think Bill Maher is one of those like talk show people that like isn't ideological. He's like he's just a libertine. So I think at the end of the day, he just is like, I just want to be able to fuck bitches, man.
Yeah, I think
like not have anyone to tell
he's
me
an
what to do with
asshole
my
also.
life.
Yeah, I
He's
think
just
Bill
an
Maher's
asshole.
biggest problem is that he doesn't read.
Yeah, I mean that's
Because
true.
he finds out about things 6 months after they happened, and then he has like somewhat of a generalized, decent take on them after the last 6 months giving bad takes on them. And then all of a sudden he's got this realization. I'm like, bitch, did you not read what was going on?
Right.
At least he learns later on.
Later on,
You know, you have to give him credit.
I'll
at
give him
least
a
he
little
changes-
bit.
I'll give him that.
his
He
podcast
changes
fucking
his
annoys
mind.
the
A
shit
lot
out
of
of me.
people won't or have like a really hard time. That's like a huge problem, I think,
Oh,
is
yeah.
that people have a hard time changing their mind or admitting that they're wrong.
Mhm.
And especially politicians too. It's like there's like this level of hubris. So it's like even if like none of us have all the fucking answers. And so
No.
like we all might be wrong about things. By might, I mean we all are probably wrong about certain things. But the thing is that like it feels like politicians feel that they have to come at things with this projection of being all knowing and that like they have all the answers and that they're never wrong.
They're better
But
than you.
it's just like
And they know it.
inaccurate. Like it's false. It's not humans. Like, and so if they find out that they're wrong, but they've been like building their campaign on this idea for so long, they can't backtrack. Like sometimes they'll like, for example, a person like Elizabeth Warren who said that only weed should have been legal for medical use in like 2011 and like talk shit about a Republican candidate because he wanted to legalize weed. And now she says that she was one of the first pro weed people.
Right.
Like, but I mean, she never like addressed it as if I was wrong and I changed my mind. She just has said, she just like ignores it.
Yeah.
And, like,
It's
comes
because
at
most
it,
of
like,
those old ass people have no concept of the internet and how it works.
Right.
And so they don't realize that somebody's going to put a mashup of her on fucking YouTube or on social media one day of her saying this one thing vehemently against weed one day and then vehemently in
she was
support of it
never
the next day.
vehemently against it. She was just like only for medical purposes, like very, you know, safe opinion at that
Oh, yeah,
time,
yeah, yeah.
I think.
I'm
But,
just
like,
trying
I
to make
think
an
that
I saw a thing of Joe Biden the other day. It was a mashup of him saying like he was talking about gay marriage, and it was like
I was
it
just
a-
gonna say
yeah,
that,
it was like
yeah.
a mashup of him a couple years ago, 5-10 years ago. I don't know how fucking long he's been in Congress longer than I've been alive.
50 years.
But yeah, it was like you put those
Real.
two opinions back to each other, back to back like that, and it generally shows these people for the fucking chameleons they really are.
And there's tons of Democrats with that particular example
Yes.
that were vehemently
Obama!
that were against gay marriage and then didn't ever say anything about it, and then the next cycle that they ran were
Yeah.
like, no, it's actually wrong if you oppose this.
Indeed.
And
Which
now
I would have
they're all
more
saying you're a
respect-
fascist if you don't agree with it.
Yeah.
Which is,
I
I'm-
would have more respect for them if they just said, "Hey, I was wrong,
Yeah.
and I admit it, and I'm gonna like, and I've changed my mind." I think that that's one reason why I do have a little bit of respect for Tulsi Gabbard, because she does do that. She's probably one of the only politicians that was like, "I was wrong about a bunch of stuff, and
Yeah.
now I've changed my mind." But like most do not like do that. They just kind of like try to pretend like they never said the thing that they said in the past and be like, "Oh, I've always been this way." It's like, bitch, no, you haven't.
I
Or
think
they
they're-
like don't address it.
Right. I think there are probably a ton of politicians that have never run on a platform of their own ideas. And so to admit that they were wrong would have like you would have to admit that you changed your mind somehow, but you didn't really change your mind because you never really believed that. It's just a thing that you said.
Yes,
And so if
true.
you were going to be honest, you would have to say, listen, I said this because I wanted to win, but I've actually always felt this. But then people either aren't going to believe you or you're a piece of shit because you lied to get elected.
Because the honest truth of the thing is they only had those talking points because the party told them to use those during your election, because these are the talking points we're all fucking running on, because we're all this giant, big 1984 level fucking bullshit political party.
Yes.
You don't actually believe anything. You're just a politician. You're a fucking gray suit with no soul,
and
who doesn't believe in shit. Here's your talking points. Go forth and do good things, and on the back end, you'll make a bunch of money doing insider trading.
And the only way to keep up the charade is to memory hold the whole thing.
Yeah,
and just
never happened.
Literally act like it never happened, and just completely move on. And if someone asks, be like, "That's not true. I've always been in support of gay marriage or abortion or whatever the fucking thing is."
Corn Pop was telling me back in 1950s that like that's love right there, Jimmy. Look at
those.
It
was his dad, right? That he's like, my dad said, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, or whatever the fuck. Like I saw two dudes, holding hands, and he's like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like I bet that's exactly what your dad said. I'm sure he didn't yell any form of slurs at those fucking dudes.
The internet's changed the game though, because now, like when Joe Biden was younger and all of these politicians were younger, they didn't have so like they weren't held to the same standard almost as they are now, and as any of us are going to be. If any of us get involved in politics, like we're going to be held at a completely different standard because we've been on the internet since 5th fucking grade.
Right. Them old tweets are going to come back to haunt us.
Yeah, we've got shit on there like God only knows. Like who knows what Joe Biden was doing if he had the internet when he was 14 and
we all know what he'd be doing.
Stuff on MySpace. Like, do you know what I mean? Like there is with the internet now too, like they say something and it's way easier to like find the hypocrisy if they change their mind. When I don't think it was that easy 30 years ago.
The cover of corporate media is no longer enough to hide the inconsistency and the lies.
Yeah.
They used to be the arbiter of information, and now you can. When Colin showed me the Wayback Machine on the internet, it blew my whole fucking brain out of my brain case. It was like, you're telling me you can find a web page that they changed, and he's like, yeah, at any time. I couldn't fucking believe it. Like I knew that the technology existed. I knew we had the power, but I didn't realize exactly how simple it was to show how much someone had lied,
particular corporate press.
Yes, politicians who remove things completely from their websites, it was Obama, right, who had written this shit about whistleblowers and he's going to protect whistleblowers, and then as soon as he's elected they remove it from his policy page completely. That's insane.
Oh man, I can't wait. So in the upcoming segment we'll go a little bit broader picture. We'll talk some more big world stuff, and I have lots of questions about this leaker. So we'll get, but that's preview till later.
Secret information and stuff.
Oh shit! I had a point. It's right on the tip of my tongue. I think as we go forward into the future,
let's hear it.
As these older boomer politicians tend to cycle through the system for whatever reason, because they're 9,000 and getting Alzheimer's and can't do their jobs. Eventually, the younger blood of politicians that through, whether we like them or not, they might be coming in at Gen X, they might, whatever. They're going to be coming in as a generation who grew up in or around the internet in some capacity. And I would hope to God that if this country survives that long, we will have a new class of politicians that aren't afraid to walk back or apologize, not necessarily apologize. That seems like the wrong context, but like come to terms with bad takes they used to have.
Yeah,
and then
admit when you're wrong.
And then as a culture, as a political culture, we'll just say, like in governmental politics, right? In campaigns and in politicians, you'll have a new breed of people that will be more used to being like, yeah, that's the way I used to think, and I don't anymore. And here's why that's a bad idea, because of this.
And here's why I changed my mind.
Right. Exactly.
Like I was a communist when I was younger, and now I'm not. Here's why I changed my mind.
Yes, we got to hold out hope, because you won't understand this reference, but the young viewer Obama, who You know who I'm talking about.
Oh yeah,
He- This is why we have hope for young Obama, because he might be a
Yeah.
communist now, but that's just
But
because he's a little baby fest, wet behind the ears kid. He'll grow up
who's
and
never
become a
worked a
libertarian.
real job. Yeah,
Exactly.
like he'll grow up.
He'll grow up
I hope.
eventually,
I hope
hopefully.
to God. I don't know, but I hope.
Yeah,
I mean, I started working when I was his age, though, so I don't know.
yeah, that is
Different
that's a thing.
generation. This generation's coming in like learning a little slower, I think.
Yeah, well, $17 minimum wage will do that to you.
We've done quite a few segments on the show of like we've just called them eating crow segments of you know, we have realized that we were wrong about something, so we'll play a clip of when we said this and then we'll explain this is why we were wrong, and it's like you said, why we changed our minds. And we fucking the big thing is always guns. You know, there's in the early episodes there are audio clips of me telling Colin that no citizen needs to own an AR-15 and like all of this type of shit. And it's I've swung so far in the opposite direction that it's hilarious to consider that that's where we were at any given time. And
It's one of my favorite pastimes. I was going to say something else, but I won't.
And the change was very public. It was very open on the show, and so through the whole process I was like, I think that I have fucked up, like I think that I was wrong about this. And the whole thing, it was nice to do, and it feels good to me to be able to have that on record, not for myself, but to be able to point it to people, to be like, you can go back, you can hear these discussions, you can hear precisely why I changed my mind and why I was wrong about this shit. And I think that's very, very, very valuable.
All right, episode 1
And
still
but
on
that
the
also
internet.
requires like the public and people to like also be forgiving
Yes.
when you
Yeah.
do change your mind.
The path to
Yes.
Do you
redemption
know what I
is
mean?
important.
Like people will also like will hold you to like that standard and being like, oh, see, like you're a hypocrite. But it's like no, I admitted that I was wrong. And I admit that like there's a complete difference between being a hypocrite and learning and growing.
100%.
Yeah. So we're getting close to time on this segment. If you guys are okay with taking a quick break here in a minute, I just want to have one last kind of closing question, maybe that we can talk about for a few minutes before we end the segment. Did you happen to see the Atlantic article when it came out about, and it was big just throughout the internet at that point, about like COVID amnesty for all the people that had the bad takes for lockdowns, and you know, all the people that were out there saying like you shouldn't have your rights unless you get vaccinated? Well, we were wrong. It turns out we want some redemption. And even me personally, somebody that generally believes in a path to redemption, I said, well, that's too far. I'm not gonna forgive you for that. There's certain lines you do not cross, and you cross that fucking one. You cross the authoritarian, I'm gonna lock you in your home, you're not allowed to use public services line. That's too much for me. There's no going back from that in my mind.
Amnesty for who though? Is it like
It's
I'm
all
not saying
individuals.
amnesty for the politicians?
Hard
No.
fucking no.
Amnesty for the media? No. Amnesty for maybe someone that was afraid that I know personally? Yeah.
Amnesty
like you know,
for
like the people in the world that were scared and were believing these authorities that they were told that they can trust. I don't really hold it against them, because in all honesty, like people were afraid and it was a very fucking rough time. So in my mind, I feel like I have to be somewhat forgiving in that, as long as they can admit that they were fucking wrong.
Okay.
If you can't, then go fuck yourself.
Let me ask you a personal question. Obviously, don't say any names or anything like that. But did you lose any personal friends because of differences on COVID response? Just, generally?
During, oh fuck yeah, during for sure. But then they all fucking came crawling back afterwards
They did.
and
Okay.
apologizing. Oh yeah.
That's
yeah.
That's fantastic.
Because I was also I wasn't like anti-vax. I was anti-mandate, saying if you want to take the facts, go for it. But don't say that I have to. That's where the line's drawn. Like, I don't give a shit what you want to do with your fucking body, to be completely honest. You're a grown adult, you do you. But like, don't say that I have to. And that was where I stood on this. And when people were trying to make it out like, well, if you don't get vaxxed, you don't care about people. Like, you're being selfish. Like that, like, yeah.
What about people who advocated for like removing people's children from them, or advocated for people?
I don't know anyone that's ever done that, but I've never met anyone that's ever felt that way, to be completely honest. So it's hard for me to put myself in that position. I feel like that was more of like an Australian thing.
Oh yeah, definitely an Australia thing. Yeah, that might.
I don't.
Because
it did happen in Australia.
It definitely did happen in Australia.
And the camp thing for sure. I mean, that happened to thousands of people in Australia being taken to their house, put in camps, and there was tons of people here, in our state in particular, that advocated for the same thing of that type of shit. Quarantine.
It's like fuck those people. But well, it depends. If they still don't think that they were wrong, then yeah, they'll amnesty. But like I'm saying, if they are now like waking up because they realized that they were wrong and that they were completely swindled, like I think that's you gotta like accept those people, and because hopefully those are people that are now waking up to like the illusion of everything. And I think
that would be my only like line would be someone who's like, I was wrong about that, but also if it happens again, I would advocate for the same policies. You know, if you don't realize that you were actually wrong on a structural level, then we have a problem. If you're gonna advocate for the same shit the next time something wild happens, I'm not gonna give you a pass. But if you did this,
I
like,
agree with that.
Yeah, but if you do the same shit, if you're like, no, this was all fucked, then I'll say what's up. You know, we can high five. Like, I feel it. You know?
And hopefully we won't have a chance to be like, fool me once, shame. You know, that's fine, shame on you, but fool me twice. Hopefully we won't get a twice and they won't have a chance to do that again.
Yeah.
But if it does, good Lord, especially in particular areas, it got pretty rough. But so I think that's a pretty
dark times.
Generally a healthy
Very
thing
dark times.
Based off of the individual. However they interface with you now, whether or not they've been able to recognize the error of their ways, all this and that and the other thing.
Joseph says no amnesty for people who affected other people's lives.
And I was just going to end on that.
I have a friend who actually was a scientist and worked on the Moderna vaccine.
A scientist?
Like, yeah, he worked
That's
on the
where those
Moderna
glasses come
vaccine
from.
in because I'm in Boston, I think it like one of the pharmaceutical companies around here. And he was very like pro the vax, but it's like also I think there was like a monetary incentive, but also he was being convinced that he's a hero. Do you know what I mean? And that like you're saving the world. You know, that's what every scientist wants to do.
Yeah.
So like he's got this vision of what's happening, and then like recently he's one of my best friends, and like there was a time period where he was very against my position on vax mandates. Now he admits that he was wrong. So, and which is a hard thing but like, because he's a scientist, he's also like very logical. So he could see the flaws in like his ways of thinking and how they've changed.
Well, good for
and
him.
I think that that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But like, and even though he was the one that was working on the vaccine, and I'm sure there's like a small aspect of guilt there, but like, you know, at least he changed his mind.
Yeah. Hopefully he wasn't just working on the monovalent, because that's not even allowed anymore.
The what?
The monovalent compared to the you remember when they came out with the latest edition of the vaccine that really the booster, more or less, that nobody else kind of got. The original COVID or the original Moderna and Pfizer vaccines aren't even allowed anymore because the emergency authorization.
His was the
doesn't exist
original,
anymore.
I believe.
The emergency, is over on a federal level. So because those original vaccines only ever got the emergency authorization, they're not authorized anymore.
Yeah.
So you can't even get the first vaccines because they weren't actually approved by the FDA.
Yeah.
So the only one you can get now is the booster. So all the people who got the original vaccines and advocated for it and said it's fucking all good to go, the FDA said that it's good and you guys are assholes for not getting it. You guys are assholes for getting shit that is actually approved.
I know.
Poetic justice, if anything else.
It was like it's a cost benefit situation.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and which it was like, I understood why old people got it.
1,000%.
Like I
We said
would
the same shit.
you know, like
Yeah.
if you're an older person, you can fucking like, this might give you like a few more years. Like get the fucking vaccine. Like why not?
You're
but like
old,
someone
you got
that's
the diabetes.
younger that isn't gonna die of COVID, that was gonna be fine anyway, and their immune system was gonna fight it off. Yeah, a child who wasn't even
6 months
most
old.
of them weren't even getting sick at all. Like that's just stupid. There's no cost benefit there. Like it made no sense.
Yep.
Yes.
Everybody needs to get hold of Joe Rogan's producer, Jamie Vernon. He's had like
thick lines,
bro. He's got thick lines. That dude has had antibodies for days and never really been that sick.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. All right, cool. Well, let's wrap this particular segment up. if you all are good with that.
Yes.
And then we'll take a break, grab some more beers, and then we'll broaden the conversation a little bit more.
Okay, so
Yeah.
with that, we will be back in just a few minutes. I am Donovan,
I'm Colin.
and this has been Brandy, and social media pumps, of course. I almost forgot.
Yep, there we go.
Brandy is at it's Creatrix_TTV,
Yeah, that's
Yes.
Twitter.
and that's Twitter, and then the other one is Creatrix
__.
__. God damn it! I keep wanting to put a period in there, but that's not it. __.
Maybe I'll change it to Liberatrix though. I don't know.
Liberatrix.
Yeah, we'll
Not
see.
the Liberator for Joseph's sake, but the Liberatrix. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
the
Colin and
the
I-
minute she updates, we'll retrocon the description.
That's right. I am at Salt of the Street on Twitter and at alpaca_Donovan on Instagram. And Colin is at Big Bird Offie on both of those things. All of this at saltofthestreets.com, including the Patreon. Go there, subscribe, share, comment.
Indeed.
We'll be back in just a few minutes with more beers and empty bladders. Thank you, everybody.
Indeed. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought.